And so they don't even really get the benefits of worshiping the demigods. If you really want to worship the demigods, you have to do it every day. Like in Puri, there's some bona fide sun worshippers. And I mean, they have this whole, this really cool temple that's like a big sundial. I mean, it's this enormous sundial with like mirrors and the whole thing, and the sun moves along the path in this temple, and I mean, it's really cool the way they do it. And then, you know, every hour or something like this, they have some kind of mantras to the sun, and I mean, it's really like a cool thing, you know. But these demigod worshippers, so-called bogus demigod worshippers, are just rascals, you know. I mean, and even those sun worshippers in Puri, they don't worship the sun just as the sun. They worship as Surya Narayan. Surya Narayan means the Narayan, or Supreme Personality of Godhead, in the form of the sun, or reflected in the sun. Mm-hmm. No, the sun god is even a shloka in the Vedas that the sun god himself is not aware of the source of power of the sun. See, so like for example, when we worship the sun in the Gayatri mantra, the Savitra Gayatri that we get initiated into, we don't mention the sun god. It mentions the sun, but not the sun god. The sun is seen as the reflection of the Supreme, the energy. Yeah, so that's real demigod worship, because it leads naturally to worship of the Supreme Lord.
Like those sun salutations we do when the weather's nice. Like some of the mantras are, I bow down to the Supreme Friend of all, one who brings on energy, one who, the mother of deity, I think is one of them. So it's not actually pointing to the sort of sun god. You know, it's actually referring to Kṛṣṇa himself.
Yes, right. Son of deity. Any more questions? Ah, good.
Question from Ronald. Dear Babaji, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Mm-hmm. What are the qualifications of reading the Bhagavatam?
Read Bhagavad-gītā first. You don't understand Bhagavad-gītā, then you don't have any basis for understanding Bhagavatam. Bhagavad-gītā ends off where Bhagavatam begins. And Bhagavatam explains in detail the things that Krishna summarizes in Bhagavad-gītā. So read Bhagavad-gītā as it is, original version by Srila Prabhupada, and then read Bhagavatam. It's also a good idea to study this Nectar of Devotion, and then you'll know what Srila Prabhupada is talking about when he discusses different rasas and different devotional practices.
Question from Tiago. Mm-hmm. Dear Babaji, please accept my humble obeisances. There are religions in Brazil that come from Africa, and they are basically in mode of ignorance. They are into spirits and dealings to do good or bad to others. My housekeeper here said some very weird stuff. Does that come from the Vedas?
Maybe originally, a long time ago, but without knowing the etymological derivation of the different names and forms of these gods, who's to say they're not just completely made up? You know, because of my interest in drumming and rhythms, I've come in contact with the the Vodun people who do all these black magic rituals and stuff like this. The drumming is fantastic, but their philosophy is pretty weird, And it's like they have all these different gods and goddesses in all these different forms and names. And they don't seem to have any conception really of the Supreme. That their whole worldview is based around their physical desires. And then the religion that they practice, they try to enlist the help of these gods and goddesses in satisfying their desires. Which, if I was a god or goddess, I would be very, very skeptical about that. Because it's just a deal. It's a business deal. Well, I'll worship you, I'll do this ceremony, I'll do this ritual, and then you do this thing for me. I mean, what kind of devotion is that? What kind of worship is that? Real worship or real devotion should be unconditional. Let the God decide what to do. I'm just going to worship you. Because you're God. Because you're wonderful. Then, if you want to help me out, you decide. Because aren't the gods and goddesses supposed to have more intelligence than humans? So they would know a better way of responding than we could think of. It's just like, I don't get it. It's like these people don't think analytically. They don't think logically about religion or about much of anything. They just think, I want this. I want to do that. And then they try to use different subtle ways of attaining their desires. But of course, these have no effect on anyone who actually has spiritual knowledge. As soon as we come in contact with Kṛṣṇa, this chases away all of these subtle ghosts and demons and all this stuff. A devotee can never be affected by that.
There's comments from Prasad. He's saying, Dear Babaji, please accept my humble obeisances. In India, Ganesh is the lord of obstacles for any good endeavors, including the path of spirituality. Sometimes his worship is only for removing obstacles, not to reach his abode. Also, the story behind Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam jewel was that Lord Kṛṣṇa saw moon on the day of Ganesh's appearance and got into needless controversy. But he was powerful and got out of the controversy of stealing the jewel. For common people, reading the story of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam jewel is enough. Our elders never made us believe that Lord Ganesh is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he's only the remover of obstacles.
Yeah, sometimes Srila Prabhupada talked about this, and he even okayed using a Ganesh mantra for removing obstacles or to begin anything. Usually Ganesh is worshipped at the beginning of something. But in general, in Bhagavad-gītā, this demigod worship is discouraged by Kṛṣṇa. He says demigod worship is for the less intelligent. Those who understand things know that all of the blessings given by the demigods are actually awarded by me. The demigods can't do anything without permission from Kṛṣṇa. They're all under Kṛṣṇa's direction. So, why worship the demigods when you can worship Kṛṣṇa directly? And that's the point. And yeah, there are different demigods that are traditionally worshipped for different purposes, but all those purposes are material. If Ganesh is not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then why would you worship him, for any other purpose than, let's say, to begin a sacrifice to Vishnu nicely, to remove all obstacles for worship of Kṛṣṇa. You see? The whole point of worshiping the demigods is to take care of any problems that would stop you from worshiping Kṛṣṇa. You know, the goal of the Vedas is to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead, not anybody else. So we see, for example, the very good example in Krishna book or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, that the gopis worship goddess Caitanya. But they worship goddess Caitanya to get Kṛṣṇa as their husband. Not anything else, you see. So if we worship Ganesh, for example, so that